Kat, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm wondering if you could tell me what was happening before we met.
Okay, yeah, I had tinnitus start occurring, sort of noticeably occurring about 6 months before we got together the other day. And it was annoying, but it got noticeably worse sort of around about October time, something like that. So about 3 months ago, and in my left ear, very much so, to the point where it was, making me feel very stressed when I was trying to concentrate on things and work. But because somehow my focus was somewhere else, I guess. But with my work, writing, reading, studying, that kind of stuff. So I just tried so many different things. I joined a group on Facebook to see if they had any ideas. I asked my work group on Facebook as well, which is where I met you. And, I tried things like dried mango, somebody suggested. Delicious, but it didn't do a thing.
Right.
All sorts of things. CBD cream, rubbing it on, oh God. So anyway, somebody did mention that hypnosis might help. And so that was why I went down that route to see if I could find somebody who could help me. Well, yeah, I mean, I had thought that it might be something emotional, and partly because I've got a habit of picking at my lip, and I can pick at my lip and I realize it's a stress thing and tear my lip apart almost sometimes, to the point of bleeding. So I had hypnosis to stop doing that. So about 6 months ago, funnily enough. And it meant that I started doing an old nervous habit of chewing the inside of my mouth. And so I thought, oh, it's all related to this old trauma, and that I need to sort of work out that old trauma. So when I came to you, I had in my mind that I was going to work out where that old trauma fits in and see if I can banish it or, work it out somehow. Anyway, that's not what you did. So I didn't feel that you had prevented it from happening, that I couldn't talk about the trauma, but that there was kind of like I was going down a different route. And so you did a couple of methods of focusing and some calming sort of methods that seemed to have me aware of my feelings and how my body was feeling and my emotions, but not necessarily directly talking about what I had initially thought was the problem. So yeah, it was really interesting because there were quite a few different moments during that where things came up that surprised me in my mind, that were just little flashes of insight, little openings of thoughts. And, I felt really, really calm and yeah, really good inside me, really. So yeah, I was so surprised because, yeah, I thought I was going to be going deep into all these past traumas.
Right. And like I say, sometimes it feels like when we experience trauma, it's like our brain catches on fire. And what I believe is talking about trauma is like pouring gasoline on a fire to try to put it out. We don't have to remember to recover. So what happened after the session?
Well, I was very, very calm and very tired, sleepy. I felt sleepy and just very, very calm. So I did have a nap. I just sat here in my chair, and I'm in a nice room here, and I just sat and I did doze off and just had a nice sleep. And then for the rest of the day, really, that into that evening and everything, I felt really, really calm, like something, well, sort of like I could breathe. So I felt really, really calm, and I had a nice sleep that night. And I did wake up with the tinnitus, but because that's right, for the rest of that day, I wasn't really aware of the tinnitus, but I wasn't aware of the fact that I wasn't aware of it. But I remember thinking about it when I went to bed, and my husband said to me, "Has it made it better?" And I was like, well, I think so, yeah. But the next morning, I did hear it in my left ear, but not in it gone in my right ear. So I did hear it a little bit, but it was muffled. But I did notice the change, and then I did a couple of the exercises. One of the exercises that you did with me, the sort of method that you used, and it just did calm me. And the next night, I had a really good sleep, and then I really became aware of the fact that it was better, not completely gone, but there seemed to be a lot of times when I wasn't aware of it, which you actually helped point out for me. We had a couple of email exchanges, because I think I was feeding you a couple of things every now and again. Oh, I've just noticed this and I just noticed that. And you said to me a very sort of convoluted, what felt like a very convoluted text that said along the lines of to notice when you haven't noticed it. And of course, I was focusing on when I noticed it. So it's like, oh, I noticed it in the morning. But there were loads of times where it wasn't happening, but I wasn't noticing that. But you said focus on when you're not aware of it, and or when it's not happening. And so I found that very befuddling in my brain, and I couldn't really understand what you meant, because it's counterintuitive, really, because we do tend to focus on the negative, and that actually highlighted for me that I do that. And so when I started going, oh, I haven't been aware of it at all, I haven't noticed it. And it all of a sudden made it feel really different, because it sort of made it feel like this long period of time that I didn't have the tinnitus. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I don't have it very much at all. So it was that funny way of saying it that you did that sort of switched my brain over, which was quite magic, really.
That's great. And so tell me how there's been some other shifts, like when you're out and about.
Well, yes, I mean, I think that, part of my journey over the last few years of trying to work out the traumas that I did experience when I was young and have led me to be who I am and how I respond to things has made me upset, because I can be very anxious, very stressed, and quite irritable with people because of that anxiety too. And I don't want to be an irritable person, but I also don't want all that anxiety. And what I've noticed over the last week has been that I don't get that. And I particularly noticed it at the grocery store, because I went with my granddaughter, and she can be quite stretching sometimes. She's 9. And then you've got to get through the aisle, and you've got to, get through the cashier and all that kind of stuff. And normally I can be get quite edgy and anxious, because that's too quick for me. And I've got to deal with her talking to me, and then, bagging and all that. And I walked out. I said, no, it's okay, bye, and walked out. And I just felt different. And I thought, oh, that's that's different. And the thing was that I was walking out, I felt it different in my body, which was, not just my head, but, because sometimes it was my body and everything. So yeah, it was quite, I said, oh, to myself, well, I said it out loud to myself. I think my granddaughter thinks I'm nuts sometimes, but I said, oh, I feel really different. And I did. It was weird. Yeah, so those kind of things, not as snappy with my husband, because he was often the one that would get the stress and all that, because he'd always forgive me, of course. And so, yeah, it's quite different.
Okay. And so after you've processed and you've done everything, how are you feeling about everything now?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm feeling very, very positive and much more relaxed. And so concentrating on reading is easier. I have suffered with a dyslexia in my life, and reading is easier, relaxed. So yeah, I feel different. And I kind of feel like that thing that I thought I had to sort out, that one last piece of the puzzle, I don't feel like there even is a puzzle, in a way. That I haven't got to worry about remembering this thing that was troubling me. And so long may that be the case, because it feels freeing. I feel like, like I can breathe. And yes, it's almost as if there's a little space somewhere that doesn't actually require filling with it. So it's space to breathe and think.
Wow. And we were just there to do the tinnitus stuff.
Yeah. And the tinnitus is so not apparent. I mean, I did have it this morning in this ear when I woke up, but I very soon wasn't even aware of it. I can't remember. I can remember making myself aware of it, and then I can't remember when I stopped being aware of it, because it was not part of my thinking. So I do see it. I think we discussed this. I do see it, that it's my old alarm system of protecting myself from anything. And that's what I grew up with. And so I suppose have to say, it's okay, thanks for the alarm, but I don't need it today. And yeah, so I'm hoping it'll just remain that way.
Right. And I think that's what I try to do in my sessions is I try to put out that fire. And then when the
Yes.
fire's out, then the alarm goes off, and then your body can start to relax. And so when that happens, especially if you've had trauma, and especially if you've had, decades of complex trauma that maybe it started from childhood, that there's a lot going on in your body often that it'll start to show up in your body. And so when we calm the fire, you cool down the brain, you calm the mind, just amazing things can start to happen, can't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's useful to think of anxiety as that alarm system, as that fire. The fire is wanting to gain oxygen, and the alarm is telling you, oh, the fire's coming.
So
yes,
I don't always focus on the smoke. I focus on the fire. When you put the fire out, all these different things happen. And you don't even have to know what's the problem, because your subconscious is working all of that out. And it just has an amazing way of just giving you what you need, right?
yes, yeah, I agree with that. I think the subconscious has got more wisdom in there that we don't really need to. We need to trust it, just as we trust that we will be able to put our feet on the ground and walk in the morning, just like we did when we were 18 months old. We don't have to keep relearning all that. We don't have to keep remembering what it felt like to not be able to walk. And so, you know, it's trusting the unconscious, and really, you know, not focusing too much on how we learned things or how we came to feel the way we feel.
Yeah, I say that I describe it as, you know, we both get our conscious minds out of the way and we just let the subconscious do whatever it needs to do. And it did a really great job for you. So I'm so happy.
It did.
And it was my pleasure.
You did a very great job. That was the thing. So thank you. So no, seriously, brilliant. It's something that will stick with me, I think. Definitely. I think that it was, you know, you've got a bit of magic going on there, and I really thank you, Leanne.